Right, Linda Nisi, thank you tonight. Meanwhile, Judge Mokgoatlheng has also expressed concern over the repeated delays in the murder trial, saying Judge President Dunstan Mlambo is perturbed by the case. Legal expert Melusi Xulu joins us now for more on this. Papash, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on this evening. The Judge President is already involved in another matter at the what do you call it, the Judicial Service Commission, where he's brought a matter of a judge that has been delaying in issuing a judgment. Now, we hear from Judge Mokgoatlheng that the Judge President is now perturbed by this particular case. He actually remarked that he thinks that the judge is enjoying this case so much that it's not finishing. Those were his remarks. What do you make of these remarks?
Good evening to you, Ntibande, and to the viewers at home. Well, obviously, this matter is an old matter from 2014, but the accused were arrested in 2020, and it is a new trial, so to speak, because it started de novo, it started afresh. So there are concerns about this case and about how it might be delayed. But at the end of the day, my personal view is that evidence has to be done correctly, even if it's not rushed, it has to be done correctly. I mean, you remember that also the states is the one that I might blame for the delay. There are certain situations where you will find that they are getting affidavits whilst the case is continuing, something that is very rare when you are investigating whilst the trial has already begun. So I think as much as maybe the court was concerned about yesterday's postponement, which was something that had to happen, and Zibande, because what was happening yesterday was there was 54 minutes of the expert Mangena that was not transcribed. So it had to be transcribed so that the expert for the defense could be able to advise the defense about what was said based on the transcription. So some postponements, if not most, they are reasonable, they have to happen, but some are not. So yeah, there is a concern because obviously our constitution says for the accused, the trial must not be late based on section 35. So that is understandable, but at the end of the day, things must be done correctly. Sometimes they will take time.
Missing transcripts, is that normal? Is that an indication of a capacity issue on the side of the state, or do they just happen to overlook that?
Oh, can you repeat, Ndluli?
I'm saying the missing portion of the transcripts, which you're talking about, of Mangena's evidence, was that due to a lack of capacity in terms of the state side to be able to produce those transcripts in time, or is it something that they just overlooked?
I don't think it was a lack of capacity. I mean, this is a high-profile case. There are times when we request the transcribers to transcribe a document within a week or within days, and they will work around it. That is why you saw yesterday there was no transcript for the 54 minutes, but in the morning they were delivered. So it shows that if the instruction is properly given to the transcriber, it can be done as soon as possible. So I think it was a matter of the state overlooking that particular fact. But obviously, maybe there will be a school of thought that might think they were hiding something, but I will not go to that point. I will just say maybe they just overlooked that aspect.
I wanted to come to that myself to say, can that be looked at as a tactic of warfare, this particular aspect of overlooking such critical information and of course resulting in delays?
Yes, no, I don't think it's a tactic. Maybe I just think it's overlooking Mdluli, because we don't have an evidence to that fact. So I think let's stick to overlooking so that we don't speculate for now.
The returning of the ballistic expert who was there a year ago, bringing him back again. I mean, many have said, once again, that is part of what is delaying this trial. We also saw Lambertus Steyn being called back again to come and testify about cell phone data. To say these are some of the things that are making this trial to go on for so long.
All right, I will focus on Mangena, then I'll go to Mr. Steyn. With Mangena, obviously the 5 accused are assisted by legal aid who pay the private legal practitioners. So they had to, as we know, based on court records, they had to get their own experts so that they can be able to cross-examine Colonel Mangene. So as much as this was delayed, but for the interest of justice, they needed to make sure that they are able to get someone who's knowledgeable as a ballistics expert. And you can see that that has assisted to a certain extent, and it will be obvious to see in the next coming days when the cross-examination continues. So that was for the interest of justice. That is why I said some postponements are reasonable, and in this case, I think it was reasonable. But remember that legal aid had to first pay the experts before everything was done as for consultation. Now, with Mr. Steyn and Zibande, I'm looking at the fact that the state has two witnesses based on the cell phone evidence, but they have two witnesses who maybe they've tried to explain it away. I will check in detail, but prima facie, the evidence that they are bringing is not the same based on who called Kelly Khumalo. So I think the preparedness of the state in some particular instances where they are contradicting witnesses on their side, it just shows that they maybe, once again, I would say they overlooked those particular points. And now they have to bring the witness that they brought previously to come and explain the contradiction brought by Pinky, the other expert from Vodacom, if I'm not mistaken. So I think sometimes the state must just be able to know what they are doing. That is why I was raising a concern, and in a respectful manner, that I find it strange that some instances they make affidavits while the case is continuing. So this just shows that there's a tendency of the state to not really have a strategic view of how they are basing the case on, so that it can follow logical sense, in my view, and respectfully.
Yeah. Well, what does the law say in a case where now, of course, we are hearing other names being mentioned of people who are really not on the trial stand at this particular point? Maybe they might be called later to be witnesses, but we're hearing a lot of detail around them, and this obviously affects their lives now. And the longer the case goes, the longer their names are in the lurch, so to speak, without any clarity of what their involvement is here.
Yeah, there was a lot of mishaps, in inverted commas, in the case, how it was investigated. And for instance, there will be names, obviously, that will be mentioned about certain firearms. It's on record that Chico Twala's firearms was tested. So obviously, all those things, and people who might not be directly involved, they will be mentioned, because everything has to be in the open. So there's no way where some names will be protected. Obviously, it's in the public eye. But as to regards to the safety of their lives, maybe it will depend if there's any trust that they've obtained so far. But I'm just focusing on the point that there will be names mentioned. And sometimes when the legal practitioner that defends the accused has a certain version that involves someone, they'll put that to the witness. That is why Mr. Mngomezulu today stated clearly that the person who, according to his client, shot Senzo Meyiwa, which is not the first time we heard about it, is actually Long Etwala. So those names will be reported. That's why I can't wait to see, in particular to Long Etwala, firstly, how he will be a state witness in this case. Remember again, Mr. Mlulu, we also have the 375 of 19 dockets where all the people in the house were said to be suspects for, obstruction of justice. So it's a very interesting case where there are witnesses who could be accused. There are witnesses who have contaminated the evidence or who have cleaned the crime scene. I can't wait to see Meki Piri coming in. So I'm saying all the names that are relevant, they will be mentioned during cross-examination, because the important thing that Mngomezulu and the rest of the team have to do on behalf of their clients is to put the version that is based on the instruction and to defend their clients. So they can't leave any stone unturned. So names will be mentioned, and hopefully they will be safe. Obviously, as you mentioned, that there might be issues of endangerment to the safety, but the names will be mentioned, Zibande.
Let's talk about what you just put up now. I mean, the question of contamination. What do you make of that exchange that I just played between the defense and the witnesses, and of course the judge, on the reconstruction of the crime scene?
Wow, that for me was interesting, Mluli, because the expert is saying what I've brought to the court based on the statement that I made, based on the reconstruction, is the evidence that I found. It's the physical evidence that was given to me. And if you listen to Ngomezulu, he followed up and said, yeah, that's correct, because whatever is given to you, that is what you will analyze. Whether it's wrongly obtained or whatnot, that is what you will analyze. I can't wait to see what the experts of the defense will say about that, because what is important when it comes to firearms cases, and so to speak, is the way the firearms is obtained from the scene, is the chain of custody to make sure that nothing was done to that particular firearm. So you heard today that the firearm that was used or the one that was allegedly used to kill Senzo Meyiwa, the 9mm one that was found in Cleveland police station. The expert was traveling with the firearm, and he said the police station is not safe. Now, that is very strange. The way logically we see things and the way things are done in criminal law, mostly, if not all the time, is that the firearm must remain in custody, not tampered with. Now, if it's taken by another official, even if it's an investigating officer, for me, that is very strange. So I find it interesting that Mangena focuses on the fact that this is the evidence and that's it. You know, just for a second, if you would give me, I found it strange that even if you watch the documentary, the Netflix documentary, maybe it will be brought through other means, this is particular issue. There are two former heads of police departments, the Hawks and the former national commissioner, that they stated that when they came on the scene was cleaned and there was no firearms. I mean, there was no bullets, apologies. But then the next day, there were bullets that were found and they were taken and put in a brown bag. That's not how evidence is collected. So there are those strange things that are happening. And at the end of the day, the state must prove its case beyond reasonable doubt. But let's see how tomorrow the other cross-examination will unfold so that we can see the explanation that will be given by the expert.
So Mgomezulu mentions what is contained in a section 43, while the expert, of course, is presenting his own reconstruction of the scene and the details that are there. And one of the areas in dispute is whether it's a 9mm or a 38 special that would have led to the demise of Senzo Meyiwa. Is there a fundamental difference in terms of the wound inflicted by a 9mm and a 38 special? Why is there such a dispute on this? If it was a 9mm, is that not something that would have been discovered in the post-mortem?
According to what I've checked, how the wound is according to the body of Senzo Meyiwa, it's not really defined whether it's a bullet that belongs to a .38 special revolver or 9mm. I did not check that in particular, but what was different was that bullet that we found, it belongs to a 9mm. So I think maybe the expert that will come on again will be able to maybe clarify if there's a different view that was brought by Mangena. But what is important is there's a differing view whether it was a .38 special revolver or a 9mm. But what I found strange about these differences, Mr. Mluli, is the fact that the expert says the fact that the two witnesses or the three witnesses saw a revolver, it does not mean that was the gun that was used. It could be a 9mm. Then it makes an analogy that it's possible to have a key that belongs to a BMW, but you're not driving a BMW, which for me, I found it very strange that that analogy makes sense. It doesn't make sense because if three witnesses say it was a revolver, and to a certain extent, there's some things that was mentioned by the IO to that effect, if possible, then that's what we had. I mean, that's what is there. and it then differs from what is bought by the state, that is, the 9mm. There's a huge difference.
I appreciate your time. Let's leave it there for tonight. Thank you very much for coming on. Melusi Xulu there, he's a legal expert helping us make sense of all this information that is coming out from that trial. Well, we have been asking, what do you think is the reason behind this delay in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial? These are your views tonight on 072-110-558. Msiza Langa Ininanda saying the judge is biased and sabotaging the defense counsel. Tabo, it's the defense team that has been dragging this trial. It's quite annoying. It's so unreasonable. The state has had to contend with charlatans here. Feel sorry for the judge whose worry has been about fairness than justice. All right, there. Those are the thoughts shared with us tonight there on the WhatsApp line. Let's take a break. We'll continue in a moment.